Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Jack Ellis, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Not the princess kind, the grown-up version where your wife comes home every night, kisses you hello, and doesn't spend her evenings planning your humiliation with her girlfriends over expensive wine. That illusion died on a Tuesday. Rachel was getting ready for another girls' night, which had become as regular as clockwork these past 6 months. She stood in our bedroom mirror, applying lipstick with the precision of a sniper. Red. Always red when she went out without me. "Don't wait up, honey," she called, not looking at me. "Zoe's going through another breakup crisis. You know how she gets." I knew how Zoe got, all right. Loud, dramatic, and prone to oversharing. What I didn't know was how much Rachel had been sharing back. "Sure thing," I replied from the doorway, watching her slip into the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. "Tell Zoe I said hi." Rachel's laugh was sharp. "Oh, I'll tell her exactly what you said." Something in her tone made my architect's brain, trained to notice when structures don't quite fit, start paying attention, but she was already grabbing her purse, already heading for the door. "Love you," I called after her. She replied without turning around. The front door slammed, and I heard her car start in the driveway. Then nothing but the hum of our empty house and the taste of something bitter in my mouth. I poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff we saved for celebrations, and settled into my home office to review blueprints for the Morrison project. But concentration was impossible. Rachel's behavior had been off for months. Late nights, secretive phone calls, new clothes I'd never seen her wear around me. I was deep in paranoid thoughts when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of Rachel's voice coming from upstairs. Clear as day, like she was in the next room. My blood went cold. Her car was gone. I'd watched her leave. I crept upstairs, following the sound to our bedroom. Rachel's voice was coming from her nightstand, her tablet, still connected to her phone via some app she'd never bothered to turn off. "Honestly, Zoe, sometimes I think he's brain dead," Rachel was saying, her voice crystal clear through the speakers. "Like, genuinely stupid. It's almost sad." I stood frozen in my own bedroom doorway, listening to my wife of 8 years. "He has no idea, does he?" That was Zoe's voice, tinged with that cruel amusement she specialized in. None whatsoever. Rachel's laugh was different now, not the one she used with me, but something sharper, meaner. I could probably bring Brent home for dinner and Jack would just ask if he wanted seconds. My hand found the wall for support. Brent. Brent McKay, who owned the flashy car dealership downtown. Brent, who Rachel had mentioned exactly once in passing as some client. "God, you're terrible," Zoe giggled. "How long has this been going on?" 6 months, give or take, ever since the Henderson house closing. Brent was the buyer's financing guy, and let's just say we found some creative ways to celebrate the sale. 6 months. While I'd been working late on projects to surprise her with weekend getaways, she'd been celebrating with someone else. "Does he suspect anything?" Zoe asked. "Jack? Please. The man thinks I'm at book club half the time. Book club? As if I'd waste my evenings reading when I could be having actual fun. He's so trusting it's pathetic. Like a golden retriever, loyal, devoted, and completely clueless." I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking as I started recording. Evidence. My architect's mind was already building a case, a blueprint by blueprint. "What about Harper? Doesn't she work with you?" Zoe continued. "Harper's jealous as hell, but she won't say anything. She knows I could destroy her career with one phone call. Besides, she's probably hoping Jack and I implode so she can swoop in and play savior. She's had a crush on him since our wedding. Harper Chen from Rachel's real estate office. I'd met her at company parties. Quiet, professional. Always seemed uncomfortable around Rachel. "So what's the end game here?" Zoe asked. "You can't keep this up forever." Rachel's pause was loaded. "Who says I want to keep it up? Brent's talking about expanding his business to Florida, says he needs a good realtor partner down there." "You'd leave Jack?" "Why not? I've got everything I need from this marriage. The house is in both our names, the savings account is joint, and Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state. I could walk away with half of everything and start fresh with someone who actually knows how to have fun." The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I stopped recording and sat heavily on the edge of our bed, the bed where she'd been lying next to me every night, planning my destruction. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Miss you already. Girls' night is so boring without you." I stared at the message, then at the tablet still broadcasting her real conversation with Zoe. She was discussing which hotel she and Brent preferred. Apparently they had several regular spots, while simultaneously texting me about missing me. I typed back, "Miss you too. Have fun with the girls." Through the speakers, I heard Rachel read my message aloud to Zoe in a mocking voice. "Miss you too," she repeated in a simpering tone. "God, he's like a puppy. It's almost too easy." That's when something inside me broke. Not shattered. Broke clean, like a bone that sets wrong and heals harder than before. I had a choice to make. I could confront her tonight, have the big dramatic scene, maybe save our marriage through counseling and tears and promises. That's what the old Jack would have done. The trusting Jack, the golden retriever Jack. Or I could do something else entirely. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Ray Kowalski's number. Ray owned the auto shop where I'd been taking my cars since college. More importantly, Ray was the kind of friend who didn't ask questions when you called him at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Ray, it's Jack. I need a favor, and I need it tonight." Ray met me in his shop 20 minutes later, wiping grease off his hands with a rag that had seen better decades. He was a big guy, built like the linebacker he'd been in high school, with the kind of practical intelligence that came from fixing things that other people broke. "Let me guess," he said, looking at my face. "Rachel." "How do you know?" "Same look my brother had when he found out his wife was cleaning out their bank account. What did she do?" I played him the recording. Ray listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment. 6 months, he said finally. 6 months. "And you want to what exactly? Slash his tires? Key his car? I gotta tell you, Jack, that's amateur hour stuff." "Nothing illegal," I said. "But I want her to understand that the golden retriever has teeth." Ray grinned. "Now you're talking. What do you need?" "Her car's been making that noise again. You remember the starter issue from last month? Tonight might be a good night for it to act up." "Funny thing about starter problems," Ray mused. "They can be real unpredictable, especially when certain wires get jostled loose." We drove to Marcello's, the upscale bar where Rachel and her crowd liked to pretend they were sophisticated. Sure enough, her silver BMW was in the parking lot, along with a cherry-red Corvette that screamed midlife crisis. Ray worked quickly and quietly under Rachel's hood while I kept watch. "She'll start up fine when she first tries to leave," he explained. "But after about 2 minutes, she's going to stall out and won't restart for at least an hour. Enough time for her boyfriend to get real annoyed about having to play rescue." "You're an artist," I told him. "I'm a mechanic, but sometimes those are the same thing." We moved to a coffee shop across the street with a clear view of Marcello's entrance. I'd brought a small camera, one of those discreet ones I used for documenting construction sites. If Rachel wanted to play games, she was about to learn that I'd been building things longer than she'd been tearing them down. At 10:30, they emerged. Rachel looked flushed and happy, hanging on the arm of a guy who looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for sleazy car salesmen. Brent McKay was tall, artificially tan, and wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. I watched through the camera lens as Rachel fumbled with her keys, laughing at something Brent whispered in her ear. They were completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to the world around them. Rachel's car started on the first try. They pulled out of the parking lot with Brent following in his Corvette. I knew exactly where they were going, the Riverside Inn, based on their earlier conversation. "Think they'll make it?" Ray asked. "Not a chance." My phone rang 2 minutes later. Rachel's name lit up the screen. "Hey, babe," I answered, injecting just the right amount of concern into my voice. "Everything okay?" "My stupid car died again," she said, and I could hear real frustration in her voice. "I'm stuck on Route 9, and it won't start. Can you come get me?" "Of course. Where exactly are you?" She gave me the location, about halfway to the motel. "I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you were working." "Don't worry about it. That's what husbands are for, right? You're the best. I love you so much." The lie came so easily to her. "Love you too. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and looked at Ray. "Phase 2? What did you have in mind?" I think it's time I met Brent properly. We drove to Rachel's location. Her car was pulled over on the shoulder, hazards blinking. The Corvette was parked behind it, and I could see 2 figures in heated discussion beside Rachel's BMW. I parked 50 yards back and approached on foot, staying in the shadows. The camera had excellent night vision, and I wanted to document this conversation. "Told you this piece of junk was unreliable," Brent was saying, his earlier charm completely gone. "Why don't you just get a new car?" "With what money?" Rachel snapped. "Jack controls the finances. I get an allowance like some kind of teenager." That was news to me. We had separate checking accounts and a joint savings. Rachel had never mentioned feeling restricted. Then maybe it's time to accelerate our timeline, Brent said. My Florida expansion is moving faster than expected. I could use a partner down there sooner rather than later. I can't just disappear overnight. There are legal procedures, asset divisions. I need to be smart about this. Smart would have been not marrying some boring architect in the first place. Rachel's laugh was bitter. You think I don't know that? But Jack served his purpose. He paid for my real estate license, covered the bills while I built my client base, gave me stability. Now I need something else. You need excitement, Brent said, moving closer to her. Adventure. A real man. I filmed him grabbing her, kissing her roughly against her car. Rachel melted into him, responding with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen directed at me in years. My phone rang, Rachel calling to check on my ETE. I let it go to voicemail. They broke apart when headlights appeared in the distance. That's probably Jack, Rachel said, quickly checking her appearance in the car's side mirror. You should go. I don't like leaving you here with him. He's harmless. Trust me, I've got him completely under control. Brent kissed her once more, then jogged back to his Corvette. But instead of leaving, he pulled into a side road about 100 yards away, close enough to watch, far enough to avoid being seen. I waited until Rachel called again, then answered breathlessly. Sorry, honey, traffic was worse than expected. I'm almost there. Hurry, please. It's getting cold. I drove up with my hazards on, playing the role of concerned husband. Rachel was leaning against her car, looking appropriately distressed. Oh, thank God, she said, rushing to hug me. I was starting to panic. She smelled like expensive cologne, not mine. Her lipstick was smudged, and there was a slight redness around her mouth from Brent's stubble. Let me take a look, I said, popping her hood. I made a show of checking connections, knowing exactly what Ray had done. Looks like the starter connection came loose again. This is the third time this month. Can you fix it? Not here. We'll have to call a tow truck in the morning. I slammed the hood shut. Come on, I'll drive you home. As we pulled away, I watched in my rearview mirror as the Corvette emerged from its hiding spot and followed at a distance. Brent was making sure his investment got home safely. I'm so sorry about tonight, Rachel said, settling into the passenger seat. I know you had work to finish. Don't worry about it. How was girls' night? Did you help Zoe with her crisis? Oh, you know how it is. Same drama, different week. She was looking out the window, and I caught her checking the side mirror. She'll figure it out eventually. She always does. I reached over and took her hand. I'm just glad you have such good friends to talk to. It's important to have people you can be honest with. Rachel squeezed my hand. You're so understanding. I don't know what I did to deserve you. The Corvette followed us all the way to our neighborhood before turning off. I wondered if Brent was frustrated about his interrupted evening, or if this was just another minor inconvenience in their grand plan. You should get that car looked at tomorrow, I said as we pulled into our driveway. Maybe Ray can figure out what's causing these starter problems. Good idea. I'll call him first thing. We went inside together, Rachel chattering about her fictional evening with the girls. I made appropriate responses while my mind worked on the next phase. I had evidence of the affair, but that wasn't enough. I needed to understand the full scope of their plan, map out all the players, and then systematically dismantle the life Rachel thought she was so cleverly building. As she got ready for bed, humming contentedly like she hadn't just spent the evening planning my destruction, I realized something important. The golden retriever was dead. What she'd be dealing with from now on was something else entirely. Something with much sharper teeth. I called in sick the next morning, first time in 3 years. Rachel was surprised but pleased, suggesting we spend the day together since her car was out of commission. I agreed enthusiastically, playing the devoted husband while internally cataloging every lie that fell from her lips. Actually, I said over coffee, why don't you take my car? I can work from home today, and you probably have showings to get to. Are you sure? I could reschedule. Nonsense. Your career is important. I handed her my keys. Besides, it'll give me a chance to call Ray about your car. Rachel kissed my cheek. You're amazing. I'll try to be home early tonight. I watched her drive away in my Honda, then immediately called Ray. She took the bait? He asked. Hook, line, and sinker. How long before you can get her car back to normal? Give me an hour. But Jack, you sure about this plan? Once you start down this road? I'm already on this road, Ray. I'm just choosing which direction to drive. While Ray fixed Rachel's car, I had other calls to make. The first was to Detective Mike Harrington, who'd retired from the state police 5 years ago and now ran a private security consulting business. We'd met when he investigated a break-in at one of my construction sites. Jack Ellis, he said when he answered. Been a while. What can I do for you? I need someone looked into. Background, finances, business dealings, completely legal and above board. This about your wife? Mike had always been perceptive. What makes you say that? 30 years as a cop. I've heard that tone before. Who's the target? Brent McKay, owns McKay Motors downtown. The flashy guy with the Corvette? Yeah, I know him. Had a few complaints filed over the years. Nothing that stuck, but where there's smoke. What kind of complaints? Mostly financial. Customers claiming bait and switch tactics, hidden fees, that sort of thing. What's your interest? I gave him the abbreviated version. Mike listened without judgment, another thing I appreciated about him. I can have a preliminary report by tomorrow, he said. But Jack, whatever you're planning, make sure it stays legal. Revenge feels good in the moment, but prison feels bad for a lot longer. Nothing illegal. I just want to know who I'm dealing with. My next call was to Nora Peterson, the office administrator at my firm. Nora was in her 50s, sharp as a tack, and had an uncanny ability to know everything about everyone in our professional circle. Jack, shouldn't you be home sick? She asked. I am home, but I need a favor, and I need you to keep it between us. This sounds interesting. What do you need? Information about Rachel's real estate office, specifically what people are saying about her lately. Nora was quiet for a moment. You know, it's funny you should ask. I had lunch with Patricia from Brennan and Associates yesterday. They're the firm that handles most of the commercial leases downtown. She mentioned some interesting gossip about your wife. Such as? Apparently, Rachel's been spending a lot of time with clients after hours, particularly one client who's been buying up properties for some kind of expansion. Patricia said it's got the other agents talking. Talking how? The usual way women talk when they think someone's getting ahead through means other than hard work. But Jack, you didn't hear this from me. Understood. Thanks, Nora. By the time Rachel came home that evening, I had a much clearer picture of what I was dealing with. Her car was running perfectly. Ray had done his work well. She seemed surprised, but pleased that the problem had resolved itself. Maybe it just needed to sit overnight, she said, though I could see the confusion in her eyes. Maybe. How was your day? Busy. Had 3 showings and a closing. Oh, and I might have a new client. Someone looking to invest in commercial properties. Anyone I know? I doubt it. He's not from around here originally. She was getting better at the lies, more creative. I wondered how much of our entire marriage had been fiction. That night, after Rachel fell asleep, I went through her tablet more thoroughly. She'd been careless with her security, using the same password for everything, our wedding date, which felt like a particularly cruel irony. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The group chat with Zoe and Harper went back months. Rachel had been documenting our marriage like a reality show, sharing private moments and conversations for their entertainment. My surprise birthday party last year, the weekend getaway I'd planned for our anniversary, even intimate details about our relationship, all of it had been fodder for their amusement, but it was the financial information that really caught my attention. Rachel had been systematically documenting our assets, taking photos of bank statements, even researching Massachusetts divorce law. She'd consulted with 3 different lawyers, shopping for the one who would be most aggressive about asset division. The most recent conversation was from this afternoon. Rachel, Jack's being extra sweet today. Almost feel bad about what's coming. Zoe, don't go soft now. You've put too much work into this. Harper, just make sure you have everything documented before you pull the trigger. You want to maximize your payout. Rachel, trust me, I've got it all figured out. Brent's business plan is solid, and the Florida market is perfect timing. By Christmas, I'll be sipping margaritas on the beach while Jack figures out how to rebuild his life. Harper, what about the house? Rachel, forced sale. We'll split the proceeds, and I'll use my half as startup capital for the Florida venture. Jack can find some sad little apartment and start over. Zoe, you're brutal. I love it. Rachel, I learned from the best. Remember how you handled your divorce? I screenshot everything, creating a comprehensive file of evidence. But as I read through months of casual cruelty, I realized that exposing the affair wouldn't be enough. Rachel had been planning this for too long, involved too many people, hurt me too systematically for a simple confrontation to satisfy the cold anger growing in my chest. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that she'd been playing checkers while I'd been learning chess. The next morning, I made another call to Mike Harrington. How's that background check coming? I asked. Interesting reading. Your boy Brent's got some serious financial issues. His dealership's leveraged to the hilt, he owes back taxes to 3 different municipalities, and his business partner's been asking some uncomfortable questions about missing inventory. Missing inventory. cars that were supposed to be delivered to customers but somehow got sold to other buyers. Nothing criminal that I can prove, but definitely shady. The kind of thing that could sink a business if it came to light. What about his expansion plans? That's the really interesting part. There is no Florida expansion, at least not one that makes any financial sense. He's been telling people he's got investors lined up, but from what I can see, he's barely keeping his current operation afloat. I felt the pieces clicking into place. So, he's running a con. Looks like it. Question is, does your wife know she's being conned, or is she part of the con? Based on the conversations I'd read, Rachel genuinely believed in Brent's business plan, which meant she was about to become the victim of her own scheme, unless I intervened first. But intervention wasn't what I had in mind. Mike, how would someone go about making sure the right people knew about Brent's business problems? Hypothetically, an anonymous tip to the Better Business Bureau might get some attention. Maybe a call to the State Revenue Department about those back taxes. Of course, I couldn't recommend anything like that. Of course not. But if someone were to accidentally leave some documentation where the right people might find it, well, these things have a way of working themselves out. I smiled. Thanks, Mike. Send me your bill. This one's on the house. I never liked guys who cheat on their wives. Reminds me too much of my ex-brother-in-law. That afternoon, I put the next phase of my plan into motion. It was time for the golden retriever to show his teeth. The confrontation I'd been planning came sooner than expected, triggered by Rachel's own overconfidence. It was Thursday evening, and Rachel was getting ready for another girls' night, the third one this week. She'd been pushing the boundaries lately, staying out later, coming home with increasingly elaborate stories about where she'd been. Zoe's having a crisis again, she announced, applying that red lipstick in our bedroom mirror. Her ex is being difficult about the custody arrangement. Didn't you just help her with that on Tuesday? I asked casually. Rachel's hand paused for just a fraction of a second. It's an ongoing situation. You know how these things are. Actually, I don't. I've never been divorced. She turned to look at me, something sharp in her eyes. Well, hopefully you'll never have to learn. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. I smiled and kissed her cheek. Hopefully not. Give Zoe my best. After she left, I didn't go to my office to wait for another accidental phone call. Instead, I drove to Harper Chen's apartment complex. It was time to have a conversation with the third member of Rachel's little conspiracy. Harper answered her door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, clearly not expecting company. When she saw me, her face went through several expressions before settling on carefully neutral. Jack, hi. Is everything okay? That depends on your definition of okay. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Harper's apartment was neat, minimalist, with real estate awards on the walls and a stack of property listings on her coffee table. Rachel's not here, she said, perching nervously on the edge of her sofa. I know, she's at girls' night. Again? I sat down across from her, noting how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Funny thing about that. I called Zoe earlier to ask about her custody situation. You know, since Rachel's been spending so much time helping her with it. Harper went very still. Zoe was confused, I continued. Said she hasn't seen Rachel outside of work in weeks. No custody issues either. She's been single for 6 months. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Harper. My voice was quiet but firm. I know about Brent McKay. I know about the group chat. I know about the Florida expansion plan, and I know about Rachel's exit strategy. The color drained from Harper's face. Jack, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But first, I want you to understand something. I'm not here to threaten you or cause you problems. I'm here because you have a choice to make. She stared at me, clearly terrified. You can continue being part of Rachel's plan, which I promise you is going to end badly for everyone involved. Or you can distance yourself from what's coming and maybe salvage your career. What do you mean, end badly? I pulled out my phone and showed her Mike Harrington's report on Brent McKay. Harper read through it, her expression growing more alarmed with each paragraph. He's broke, she whispered. Worse than broke. He's running a con, and Rachel's his mark. That Florida expansion, those investors, none of it exists. He's planning to take whatever money she brings to the table and disappear. Harper looked sick. She doesn't know. No, she doesn't. She thinks she's playing me, but she's being played herself. I leaned forward. Now you can try to warn her, but we both know she won't listen. Rachel's convinced she's smarter than everyone else in the room. Or you can step back and let this play out naturally. What are you going to do? Nothing illegal, nothing violent. I'm just going to make sure the truth comes to light at the right time, in the right way. Harper was quiet for a long moment. She's my colleague, Jack. We work together. And how's that been going lately? You getting your fair share of the good listings? Or has Rachel been monopolizing the high-end clients? From Harper's expression, I could see I'd hit a nerve. She promised me the Henderson account, Harper said quietly, then gave it to herself at the last minute. Said I wasn't ready for something that big. The Henderson account. That's where she met Brent, isn't it? Harper nodded miserably. She said it was just business networking. I believed her. Harper, I'm going to ask you to do something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Tomorrow morning, Rachel's going to get some very bad news about Brent's business situation. When she does, she's going to be angry, confused, and looking for someone to blame. You can either be standing next to her when the walls come down, or you can be somewhere else entirely. You want me to abandon her? I want you to save yourself. Rachel made her choices. She involved you without considering the consequences for your career or your reputation. Now you get to make your choice. I stood up, leaving my business card on her coffee table. If you decide you want to distance yourself from what's coming, call me. I might be able to help minimize the damage to your professional reputation. And if I don't, then you'll go down with the ship. And Harper, it's going to be a spectacular sinking. I left her apartment and drove to Marcello's, where I was reasonably certain I'd find Rachel and Brent sharing drinks and planning their future. Sure enough, both cars were in the parking lot. This time, I didn't hide across the street. I walked straight into the bar. Marcello's was dimly lit, with leather booths and the kind of atmosphere that made people feel sophisticated while they made terrible decisions. I spotted Rachel and Brent immediately. They were in a corner booth, heads close together, her hand resting on his arm. I walked over and slid into the booth next to Rachel. "Hi, honey," I said cheerfully. "Funny running into you here." Rachel's face went white, then red, then white again. Brent looked like he was trying to decide whether to run or fight. "Jack!" Rachel's voice was too high, too bright. "What are you doing here?" "Grabbing a drink with my wife and her friend." I extended my hand to Brent. "Jack Ellis, I don't think we've been properly introduced." Brent reluctantly shook my hand. His grip was weak, clammy. "Brent McKay." "Ah, the car dealer. Rachel's mentioned you." I signaled the waitress. "Bourbon, neat, and another round for my companions." "Jack, this isn't—" Rachel started. "Isn't what? Isn't what it looks like?" I smiled at her. "What does it look like exactly?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Brent cleared his throat. "Your wife was just helping me with some real estate advice. A business meeting." "At 9 p.m. in a bar. How professional." I took a sip of my bourbon when it arrived. "What kind of real estate advice?" "Investment opportunities," Rachel said quickly. "Brent's expanding his business. To Florida, right? I hear the market down there is fantastic." Brent's eyes narrowed. "How did you—" "Oh, Rachel tells me everything." "Don't you, sweetheart?" I put my arm around my wife, feeling her stiffen under my touch. "We don't have any secrets." The irony wasn't lost on any of us. "Well," Brent said, starting to stand, "I should probably—" "Sit down." My voice was still cheerful, but something in it made Brent sink back into his seat. "I want to hear more about this expansion plan. As an architect, I'm always interested in development projects." For the next 20 minutes, I let Brent dig his own grave, asking detailed questions about his business plan while Rachel sat frozen beside me. The more he talked, the more obvious it became that he was making it up as he went along. "Fascinating," I said finally. "You know, I have some contacts in Florida real estate. Maybe I could put you in touch with them." "That's not necessary," Brent began. "Oh, I insist. In fact, why don't I make some calls tomorrow? Really help you get this project off the ground." The panic in Brent's eyes was delicious. "Actually, we're still in the preliminary stages." "Even better. Early planning is crucial." I finished my bourbon and stood up. "Rachel, ready to head home? We should let Brent get back to his evening." Rachel looked like she was trapped between two bad choices. Yes. Okay." As we walked toward the exit, I called back to Brent. "Great meeting you, Brent. I'll be in touch about those Florida contacts." In the parking lot, Rachel finally exploded. "What the hell was that about?" "What was what about?" "I met your client, showed some professional interest in his project. Isn't that what supportive husbands do?" "You can't just show up at my business meetings." "Business meetings? Is that what we're calling them now?" I stopped beside her car. "Rachel, do you think I'm stupid?" The question hung in the air between us. "Of course not," she said finally. "Good, because I'd hate for you to underestimate me." I kissed her cheek, the gesture gentle but somehow threatening. See you at home? I drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot, probably wondering how much I knew and what I planned to do about it. The answer was simple. I knew everything, and I planned to do everything. The hunt was just beginning. Friday morning brought the first domino falling. I was in my home office, ostensibly working on blueprints, when Rachel's phone started ringing, and ringing, and ringing. She answered on the fourth call, her voice sharp with irritation. What? I'm trying to work. From across the house, I could hear her side of the conversation getting increasingly agitated. Words like investigation and audit and immediate review drifted through the walls. When she finally appeared in my office doorway, her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Everything okay? I asked, not looking up from my drafting table. There's some kind of problem with one of my clients. The state's investigating his business for tax issues. That's terrible. Anyone I know? Brent McKay. She was watching my face carefully. The one we met last night. Ah, the Florida expansion guy. That's unfortunate timing. Jack, did I what? She stared at me for a long moment, clearly wanting to ask if I'd somehow orchestrated this, but unable to figure out how or why I would. Nothing, she said finally. I need to distance myself from this situation professionally. Probably smart. You don't want to get caught up in someone else's business problems. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike Harrington. Package delivered. Revenue Department was very interested in those tax documents. I deleted the message and went back to my blueprints, humming softly. Over the next few hours, Rachel received 7 more phone calls. By noon, she was pacing the house like a caged animal. Brent's dealership was being audited, his business accounts were frozen pending investigation, and several customers were filing complaints with the Better Business Bureau. I don't understand how this happened so fast, she said, more to herself than to me. These things tend to snowball once they start, I replied. One investigation leads to another, and before you know it, everything's unraveling. My phone rang. Harper Chen's name appeared on the screen. Excuse me, I told Rachel. Work call. I answered in the kitchen, out of Rachel's earshot. Jack? Harper's voice was small, frightened. I've been thinking about what you said. And? I want out. Whatever's happening with Brent. Whatever Rachel's planning. I can't be part of it anymore. Smart choice. What changed your mind? Rachel called me this morning, screaming about the investigation. She wanted me to lie to the authorities if they asked about her relationship with Brent. She said I owed her that much. What did you tell her? That I couldn't do it, that I wouldn't risk my license for her affair. Harper's voice cracked. She said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure I never worked in real estate again. And that's when you realized what kind of person you'd been covering for? Yeah. Harper was quiet for a moment. Jack, there's something else, something you should know about tonight. Tonight? Rachel and Zoe are planning some kind of setup. I don't know the details, but they mentioned recording something, getting evidence of you being abusive or threatening. Rachel said she needed insurance in case the divorce got ugly. My blood went cold. They're planning to frame me? I think so. Zoe's supposed to hide somewhere and film, while Rachel provokes you into doing something they can use against you. Where? I don't know. But Jack, be careful. Rachel's desperate now, and desperate people do dangerous things. After Harper hung up, I stood in my kitchen, processing this information. Rachel wasn't just planning to leave me, she was planning to destroy me on her way out. The fake abuse evidence could cost me my job, my reputation, possibly even my freedom. But forewarned was forearmed. I called Ray. I need another favor. What kind of favor? The kind that involves you being in the right place at the right time with a camera. That evening, Rachel was unusually affectionate. She cooked dinner, something she hadn't done in months, and suggested we open a bottle of wine. I've been thinking about what you said last night, she told me over pasta, about not having secrets. Oh? I haven't been completely honest with you about some things. Here it comes, I thought. The setup. What kind of things? Well, for instance, I haven't just been helping Brent with real estate advice. We've been closer than that. She was watching my face carefully, waiting for my reaction. I kept my expression neutral. Closer how? We've been having an affair, Jack, for months. The admission hung between us like a loaded gun. I see, I said finally. That's it? That's all you have to say? What would you like me to say, Rachel? She was getting frustrated, clearly expecting anger, shouting, maybe even violence. I just told you I've been cheating on you. Yes, you did. With another man. I heard you the first time. Don't you care? I set down my wine glass and looked at her directly. Rachel, I've known about Brent for weeks. The color drained from her face. What? I've known about the affair, the Florida plan, the group chat with Zoe and Harper, the lawyers you've consulted, and the exit strategy you've been planning. I smiled. I even know about tonight. Tonight? The recording setup. Zoe hiding somewhere to film me having a breakdown so you can use it in divorce proceedings. Rachel's mouth opened and closed like a fish. How did you know all this? Because you underestimated me. You thought I was some pathetic, trusting fool who would never catch on. But here's the thing about architects, Rachel. We're really good at seeing how all the pieces fit together. I pulled out my phone and played the recording from that first night, when I'd overheard her conversation with Zoe. Rachel's own voice filled our dining room. He's so trusting, it's pathetic, like a golden retriever, loyal, devoted, and completely clueless. You recorded me? I recorded you planning to destroy my life. There's a difference. Rachel stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. You can't use that in court. It's illegal to record someone without consent. In Massachusetts, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. Since I was technically a party to the conversation, it was happening in my house, about my marriage, it's perfectly legal. The front door opened, and Zoe's voice called out, Rachel, I'm here for girls' night. Rachel and I looked at each other across the wine-stained table. She has a key? I asked. I gave her one months ago, in case of emergencies. Jack didn't raise his voice once. He didn't have to. He just stood in the ruins of the life Rachel tried to dynamite and calmly handed her the match she'd already lit. Every move she made to humiliate him, he'd mirrored back tenfold, quietly, patiently, lethally. The hidden cameras, the perfectly timed arrest text, the group chat audio ready to go viral, the inheritance clause she never thought he'd use. He'd been 10 moves ahead while she was still bragging about how predictable he was. And that final line, you loved what I could provide. There's a difference, delivered while she stood in broken china and mascara tracks. That wasn't anger. That was clarity with a PhD in scorched earth. Rachel spent months thinking she was the predator and Jack was the prey. Turns out the prey had just been waiting for her to step fully into the trap before he pulled the rope. Zoe dropping the phone the second she realized the script had flipped. Chef's kiss. She came for a breakdown and walked into her own premiere. Local influencer stars in career-ending meltdown. Jack didn't scream. He didn't gloat. He just opened the door and let the consequences walk her out. Some men burned the house down with the cheater still inside. Jack waited until she torched it herself, then handed her the ashes in a designer suitcase and said, 59 minutes. Cold, maybe. But after what she planned to do to him, mercy would have been cruelty to the man he used to be. Here's to Jack. The quiet ones always hit the hardest when they finally swing, and this swing just took her head clean off.